Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today we are talking about a book that you voted for on my post where I put the poll up about what book should I review next, and you all decided we needed to talk about Dead Time Stories book number 1, Terror in Tiny Town. So this one's interesting. So first of all, Dead Time Stories is a series that came out in the 1990s and is written by a pair of sisters who go under the name A.G. Cascone. So they're a pair of sisters that wrote these stories, and they're right in the height of the Goosebumps, fandom, craze, all the things are happening. So we've got a lot of different Goosebumps type series that are popping up because every publisher wanted to have their own Goosebumps to sell to kids in the middle grade market. So enter Dead Time Stories from Troll Publishing. Now, Dead Time Stories, there were 17 books in the series originally, and then there was an 18th book added later on when they did a re-release of the books. Some of them are really difficult to track down, though. Some of them go for a lot of money online, but a lot of them are still in that pretty cheap range of like $4 to $5 online, and if you can find one in a bookstore, they're pretty cheap. It's definitely a knockoff Goosebumps type series, but it's a lot of fun. So what happens in Terror in Tiny Town? We have these two kids, Willie and Zach, and they're best friends, and Willie has this amazing train set in his basement. It is this huge town. It has tons of toys in it. He's like really built this thing up. It's amazing. He loves doing these model trains with it, and it's like his favorite thing ever. And in this train set, there is like the Wild West town. There's like a castle. There's like all these different areas of the town that he's created in this huge model train thing that no kid would ever really have on their own, probably. Like, I remember loving model trains. It was like one of the things I loved to watch. Like, I loved watching them at different places where they had displays of them. I remember growing up, there was this place called Enchanted Forest in Oregon, and I would go there sometimes, and they had this huge model train set up where you could hold down the buttons and the trains would go through the mountains and all the different things. And it was so much fun to watch. Well, this kid has one in his basement. And then one day he gets this new toy, Hurley the Hobo. And Hurley is not just any toy, because something weird is going on with Hurley. Because suddenly, are all the toys in the town alive? What is happening inside this little town? And soon, everything goes totally out of control when the town decides they've had enough of Willie and Zach being in charge, and they want to take over the town. So things go from there. Now, I will say this book was not as scary as other books that I've read that are the similar kind of middle grade, not super long, 120-ish pages. There are some that are actually kind of scary, like some of the Shivers books by M.D. Spencer actually have some really good moments. And even, of course, there's some classic Goosebumps that have some moments in them. But Dead Time Stories is a little, at least in this first entry, is a little less on the scary side and a little more on the Twilight Zone side, in my opinion. This is much more like a Twilight Zone kind of story where you have this little town of all these different characters are coming to life. It also reminded me a lot of Night at the Museum, and it reminded me of another middle grade spooky book from the 90s, and that is SpineChillers book number 2, Attack of the Killer House. This book was very similar to this book in a lot of ways. They both have this like thing where there's different things attacking the kids. The kids are kind of like running around the house trying to save themselves, save the day, get away from these toys, figure out how to defeat them, etc., etc. Now this one, SpineChillers, is from another spooky series that's actually a Christian book series, and this one is not a Christian book series. So this one has like prayer and different things, and there's not actually anything super scary happening. But this series, there is some actual things happening here. So let's talk about it. Now, in this particular book, you have these characters, Willie and Zach, who are your typical, Goosebumps kind of characters that are there for advancing the plot. They get in trouble, they're regular kids, they're not really much character depth to either one of them. There's an annoying little sister named Margaret, who is the typical annoying little sister in these kinds of books, like very painted that way. So you have a lot of those kinds of elements. this book to me just was not that scary. There weren't any moments where I thought, oh, that's really creepy or that's really scary. It was more action oriented, which I thought was interesting. You also have the spooky thing showing up a lot sooner than like a Goosebumps book. A lot of times in Goosebumps, the spooky stuff would wait a really long time to show up, and sometimes not even barely show up at all. And there are some where the book has a monster in the title and the monster never actually shows, which I'm not going to say which one, but there was one I read recently that I thought, why is this book called this when that thing doesn't even appear in the book? Anyways, I digress. But in Terror in Tiny Town, stuff starts right off the bat. You get right into it. And actually, the writing style reminded me more of a FrightTime novella than anything else that I've read. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. It's very grounded in the 90s. Lots of 90s things are going on. The references are very 90s. And you have like a pretty good setup of a plot. I feel like the plot's actually very interesting. You're trying to figure out what's going on, especially with Hurley, this character, this toy character that's in the town. You're trying to figure out like what is happening, like why is this happening? And we do get some answers, but then the end, which I am not going to spoil the end here because this is a no spoiler review. But I will say the ending was a little bit of a like, okay, why, what's going on? Why is that happening? Now, I think, I have not read it, but I'm pretty sure there is a sequel to this book called Trapped in Tiny Town. And I think that that one might be a little bit on the answering some more questions side of things. Like I said, though, I have not read that one. I don't own that one yet. I'm still trying to find it. But I think it will be a sequel to this one in particular, since it is called Trapped in Tiny Town, a direct reference to Tiny Town in Terror in Tiny Town. So this one is definitely a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Just don't go in expecting a goosebumpsy, spooky story. It really is much more like a Night at the Museum action Twilight Zone kind of story, which I found really fun. I really enjoyed it. So at the end of the day, I would give Terror in Tiny Town a really solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was menacing. It wasn't scary, like I said, but it was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy it. I think if the ending had been just a little different, or there had been just a tiny bit more explanation of what exactly was happening, I think I would have liked it even more and bumped it up to that 5. But I think it's a really solid first entry in this series. And definitely, if you're into middle grade spooky books, this is right up your alley. Definitely go check this one out. You're going to enjoy it and you're going to have a great time. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.